Finance New Orleans Board of Trustees meeting roll call. Chair Edgar Chase IV.
Present.
Vice Chair Andronica Morris.
Present.
Secretary Treasurer G. Wade Wooten. Board Member Giselle Johnson Banks.
Present.
Board Member Charles H. Brown. Board Member Steve Smith. Board Member Hunter Thomas.
Here.
A quorum is present.
All right, thank you all. Thank you all. We're going to open up the March 28th, 2022 Finance New Orleans Board meeting. We did the roll call. We'll go over the old business. And I think, Naj, that's just a resolution that we signed from the last meeting that we approved of the slated 2022 slated officers remaining the same, correct?
Yes, sir. So we will be circulating that to you, and it looks like it requires a signature from Wade. So we'll have this for the record. And that's all that item is there for, just to confirm.
Okay, and that one is really just confirmation. We don't need to vote or do any action items on that.
No,
Got
sir.
it. All right, well, let's then move on to item number 3, approval of the consent agenda items, starting with the February 24th board meeting minutes, as well as the February 16th program committee meeting minutes. If you all had a chance to review, and when you're comfortable, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
It's a motion to approve. It's been second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes, but
Aye.
Okay, the motion has been approved. Let's move on to item number 4, new business. And Naj, I'll let you kind of take this one over. I think most of us are familiar with this, but if you give us a brief update again.
Sure. Annually, as public board members, we are required to complete an annual Tier 2 financial disclosure. The reason this is on our agenda for this month is because it's due May 15th. So I've attached it in the packet if you need it, just as a reminder to get that out to the state of Louisiana ethics people.
Naj, quick question. This is Wade. Do you want us to at least alert you once we've submitted the submissions? In the past, sometimes y'all want to know, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We want to know. I'll keep a tally of who's completed it timely. So that way we'll be in 100% compliance.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wade. Yes. The next meeting is in April, and we have a out-of-town conflict. It's our annual NALFA meeting in New York. Several of the 2 of the chiefs will be out of the office, as well as some other members. And so we are going to send a doodle poll out to each of you from our communications department, proposing a new date for our April's board meeting. Thank you.
If that'll work. And that conference is majority of the part of the last week in April, right?
Yeah,
Just giving people an idea of where this doodle poll may fall in reference to April.
sure. We're looking at the last Friday of April, and I have 3 options as far as times, just because it would fall naturally on the last week of April anyway, and not to, put 2 board meetings in 1 month as far as May. So hopefully we'll be able to get a considerable amount of folks that are available, at least to have a quorum.
And okay. Yeah, send out a poll in maybe 2 days. I just know that April, you're thinking April 29th?
Hold on
or the 22nd. I know April 29th is going to be pretty busy on a few folks, and especially mine. But let's just go with it. We don't have to spend time on it now. Just send out a doodle poll with a few days.
Sure, I'll offer an additional day as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move into item number 5, Finance and Investments Committee report, and I'll hand that over to you, Mr. Wooten.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Need 2 seconds to pull this up. Okay, so Naj, if somebody could turn to pages 5 and 6, please, which is the market update.
Sure.
Okay. So let's see. Globally, inflation continues to be the topic of discussion, the driver of uncertainty in the markets, on top of geopolitical crisis in Ukraine. It's just adding to the existing supply chain issues and upward pressure for pricing across the board. Excuse me. The most recent CPI number for February reached another 40-year high, coming in at almost 8%, 7.9% year over year. So that would catch anybody's attention. This was driven primarily by higher energy and food prices, as well as by higher housing and rent prices. In an effort to address this increase, the Federal Reserve 2 weeks ago approved its first interest rate increase since 2018, raising the benchmark by 25 basis points. The committee also penciled in increases at each of the 6 remaining meetings this year, pointing to a consensus fund rate of 1.9% by the year's end, which is a full percentage point higher than indicated in December. They also expect to wind down their bond buying program this month with a final round of $16.5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. As a quick aside, I saw 5-year Treasury rates are actually inverted, are higher than the 30-year. Byron, did you notice that?
Yeah, that's been a talk too. As an
really
inverted
unusual
yield curve,
Yes.
That's kind of an indicator of a maybe possible recession. It's like a lot of people look at that, that inverted curve. So sometimes that does happen in this type of scenario. So a lot of people are keeping an eye on that curve.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
I just saw it yesterday in the news. With regard to U.S. unemployment data, it continues to signal a more resilient labor markets. The rate moved down slightly to 3.8% in February from 4% the prior month. Jobless claims, another positive note, fell to 187,000 from 215,000 in the prior week. And then turning to bond rates, bond rate changes were mixed during the month. The U.S. 10-year Treasury yield decreased slightly by 4 basis points to 1.99% month over month. And the muni yields, that's AAA MMD rating, increased across the the curve with a 10-year move up 20 basis points. And then lastly, agency mortgage-backed securities increased approximately 18 basis points. And then focusing on the local setting, preliminary data shows that unemployment rate in Orleans Parish increased to 6.6% in January 2022 from 5.8% the prior month. But again, it's down from January 2021 of 12.4%. So overall, an encouraging trend. Turning to the financial status report as of February 2022, again on page 7. Excuse me. So this page provides a comprehensive view of our year-to-date revenues and expenses. And the overall revenues year-to-date were 7,000 versus a budget of 134,000. Why the shortfall is driven primarily by multifamily income. And the Finance Authority does have a few projects pending to close, which will increase this line. And then on the expense side, we were favorable to budget by 146,000 for the month, with actual expenses coming in at 231,000 versus a budgeted amount of 377,000. So again, primarily favorable in all categories. Excuse me. Turning to page 8, please. This page provides a 13-month trend of our revenues and expenses. Both revenues and expenses have normalized back down close to the run rate, with expenses moving below the average due to seasonality and low activity for expenses during the month of February. Page 9, which is a balance sheet year-on-year comparison. So the composition remains consistent given the minimal activity, nothing really material to report with regard to page 9. Turning to page 10, pathways, revenues and expenses. So the takeaway here is total revenues of 395 for the month. It's 300, yeah. And expenses of 4,000. Page 11, cash and cash equivalents, month's end. Again, there were 9.3 million at February, then, which is 99,000 lower than the prior month. That, I think, is a quick snapshot. Byron, comments, observations?
You covered it, Mr. Wooten. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Okay, I yield the floor back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Let's move on to item number 6, the Programs Committee report. Ms. Morris.
Good afternoon, everyone. How y'all doing? So program committee did meet this month, and we have a few things we wanted to share with the group. So first up, an update on the Community Support Fund. No significant changes there. So we're probably going to need to talk about that in a couple more cycles. There's still need out there. So do people not know about the program, or is it time for people to be like, oh, well, this is not what we need to be doing? So we'll probably hear from staff in the next couple of months about how that's going, and if there's any other changes that we as the board want to make, because we did authorize this program. Next up, we want to move on to the Green Mortgage Program. So there was another closing in February, and as a reminder, we still haven't gotten to the full version of the program where we have actually helped someone renovate a house or buy a house that is net zero or entirely energy efficient. So these closings are using some of the remnants of the Own New Orleans program, the single family loan program, but it does have the opportunity for that homeowner to make repairs or upgrades to the house after they've been in the house for a while. So Hope Springs, though, that we're going to get one where the person is buying a home that is energy efficient, or one of our existing buyers will be able to upgrade their home and make it energy efficient. There's still a huge need around this issue, as we can see and there's some other programs coming out. The legislature is entertaining millions of dollars in programs to do these kinds of programs across the state. So, the team is definitely on the right track. We've just got to get all of the pieces together. And again, one of the things that we're seeing is that there's a more desire for a rehab program. But if we can figure that part out, or if there are some developers who can build single family homes that, you know, have all those energy efficient pieces, that would work really well too. The big thing that we talked about at the meeting, the programs committee meeting, is the sustainable developer pipeline. And so there are 53 total projects, and there are 17 pending applications, and they're in various stages. We're still waiting. It does not look like we're going to get, we will not get those closings, those 3 closings in Q1. We got one. I mean, sorry. We were supposed to get 3 closings in Q1. Q1 ends in a couple of days, and unless something changes, those closings will not happen in Q1. So they're getting pushed back. That's the Reveal. Christopher Park is definitely been pushed back till April. Their environmental clearances, they're still pending that. That's from the SAC approval, the special approval. Oh God, I can't remember what SAC means again. And the special approval center, and for HUD. So they're pending that. But they also have some challenges around their insurance. So it's been pushed to April. Grove Place is also being pushed to April. But we still feel confident that these deals are going to move forward, and which is really exciting. And there was a really great event a couple 2 weeks ago, H3C. Not only the deal we closed in last year had a groundbreaking, and to talk about this major project that Finance New Orleans is a part about. It's really exciting. And then we've got another project that's going to be coming before the board in April. The program committee heard a presentation from the developers and staff at the last meeting. This project's called Our Lady of Lords. It's on 2428 Napoleon. It's being done by Providence Community Housing. It'll be 62 units at a total development cost of $28.7 million. The underwriting was approved in February, and so they were going to be requesting a pilot and bond financing. So that project, we're really excited because this is the first project that we're taking through the timing. That's, you know, where the things that we have laid out with staff around the review, so that it will come to the program committee after it goes to underwriting. Program committee will get to review it, ask questions. It'll come back again to program committee before it's presented to the full board for approval. And because what we've done with the last few is that they have had to, in order to be accommodating for our developer partners, we have had to, you know, accelerate, and sometimes it's hurry up and wait and do things out of order. But this project is coming all the way that we've done, the process that we've laid out. So it's really exciting. So you all are going to hear about it in detail at the April meeting, but the programs committee will see it again and get to dig down deep around the documents and the needs before we present it to the full board in April for hopefully for approval. And that is all we have. I skimmed over the 17 pending applications. They are in various states, which is really exciting. Waiting a full application. Some people have pre-applications. 2 are under review, which is really good that we're moving projects around. And so the staff has got a really good handle on this. So I want to thank the team and Damon and Kelly. You know, this is exactly what we wanted to see at this state, and so we're excited that you all are moving in this way. Anybody got any questions, comments, anything that anybody else wants to add about program committee? Sounds like no. So Chair Chase, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. No, I'm excited definitely with the 17 pending applications. Let's keep this momentum going. We're going to move on now to item number 7, which is the Executive Management Report. Mr. Burns.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Chair Chase and board members. It's good to see everyone today. Actually, before I jump into my report, I'm going to turn it over to Mashika Baptiste, who's our Director of Innovation, so that she can give a presentation, same one that was given to the Programs Committee, but it's about our Resilient New Orleans Fund, our Resilience Fund, our Resilient Innovation Fund. And it's about how we plan to engage entrepreneurs, developers, et cetera, in the name of advancing the Resilient New Orleans plan. So all of the projects that we've been discussing, in theory, we're ready to start putting it in action. And today, Mashika is going to walk you through what that looks like from our perspective. Mashika.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to start off by just kind of reviewing the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. It was brought in front of the board last year, but we just wanted to kind of talk about it in the context of what we're doing now with the plan. So just for a review, the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan is a framework to coordinate the mobilization of public and private sector capital for projects that are physically transformative, climate resilient, and socially impactful. This was the plan that was started in 2019 with the help of C40. We've done a lot of work with that plan and with our working group, our 14-member partners that I'll talk about later on in the presentation. So again, the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan, just as a recap, the framework revolves around climate action, sustainability, green economic development, and social equity. The target projects that we're looking at are ones that are renewable energy, green buildings, clean transportation, water management, and based on nature-based solutions. We can go to the next slide. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So one of the main, go back to the last one. One of the main things is exactly what are climate projects. If we can go back to slide 4. So these projects come in 2 different forms. They're mitigation and adaptation. And these projects are what are here to help make positive contributions to climate change. If we can go to the next slide. If you look here, this is actually the emissions profile of the inventory of the city of New Orleans. And we see that our GHG pollution comes from 3 different categories. They're transportation, energy, and waste. We can support the city of New Orleans by reducing GHG emissions or sequestering them. And this can happen through the replacement of fossil fuels for renewable and clean energy. When we're looking at that, we're looking at solar, thermal, and photovoltaic installations, as well as wind energy installations, promoting clean transportation, infrastructure for electric vehicles, zero emission vehicles, and cycling and walking paths, as well as reducing waste generation and increasing recycling. Next slide, please. So one approach is to reduce GHG emissions. The other is adaptation, and that is to reduce the significant impacts of climate change, such as heat waves, flooding, hurricanes, sea level rise. These are all consequences of what climate change has done to our society. And these are things such as nature-based solutions, things that promote biological diversity. So we're looking at parks, green rooftops, other green spaces. And then there's the implementation of flood risk mitigation initiatives, such as permeable pavers, rain barrels, French drains, rain gardens, and as well as hurricane proofing homes and infrastructure. If you look at this climate adaptation plan from Houston, they use both mitigation and adaptation solutions. So you see they have the urban gardens and trees that they've planted, but then they also have multimodal transportation, as well as energy efficient buildings and renewable energy sources. So you can use both of those solutions, both mitigation and adaptation, when you're looking at changing the landscape of a city or a region. And those are the type of projects that we are looking at as well. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting slide from the Paris plan. What Paris has done is they have taken something that's called the 15-minute city, or other places such as Milan or Melbourne, they call it the hyperlocal model. This gives co-benefits to both the residents who are staying there and then also developers as well. So what is happening here is in a 15-minute city, everything that you can do or need to do you should be able to do within 15 minutes walking or biking. So this helps with, as we talked about, the mitigation of GHG, and then also it's a better quality of life for citizens. What we see here is that they use these small ecosystems to make more green space. They took out parking on the side of the street, so more people can walk or ride bikes. They've also used where they are developing property, that these properties are able to be used for different reasons. So you can go to your local doctor, and when they close at 5 o'clock, it's used for community spaces, and even on the weekend. So those spaces that are being developed are used for different activities. That way, people are actually walking more, biking more, the air quality is better, and just they're able to make these small walkable neighborhoods. And so they've seen where they have gotten better quality of life. They've created more green jobs, more green spaces. And these just help with the total ecosystem. We've been doing some studies on this with our other partners. We'll talk a little bit more about this in upcoming meetings and presentations, but this is what we're looking at when we're talking about climate change, climate projects that are actually going to make a significant difference in the jurisdiction in the region. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about why it's important for us to have a project pipeline and why we're mapping these green projects. Next slide. Well, one of the things that we know is that it's a positive contribution to environmental objectives, that it helps us when we start putting these maps together, these green maps. It helps investors and banks identify where our green assets are here in the city. And so this helps us to direct investment opportunities and capital. Next slide, please. We've also heard that our current pipeline is insufficient for the demand that investors have for green projects. So along with the working group, we've come together to put a stepwise approach together so that we can develop green projects that are profitable and bankable for these areas that we're talking about. Now, what's so important about this is working with them is when projects are coming together for us to be in the very beginning of the project to understand what the project is, and then how all of these green features, how they can, we can invest in them. So we don't want them to go far down the line in projects, and then those particular green features that they're putting on these projects, they're not going to be able to have green investment tools that we're able to use. So it's very important that we work hand in hand with them in the development of these projects. Next slide, please. So here's our stepwise approach. We start with identification of emission sources and sectors. We want to identify the emission sources where we have vulnerable assets in the city and the sectors that are critical to effective mitigation and adaptation. Then we have the project concept development from strategic actions, as well as then developing the business and finance model, seeing if it's feasible, and then how's it implemented. as well as measuring the impact against targets, so that when these projects are coming together, we can understand, do we need to pivot? Are these actually making a difference? Are they going towards the goal that the city has put out in their climate action plan? So it's very important for us to be able to measure those impacts. Next slide, please. So this is our current pipeline. If you go to the next slide. We worked with C40 to develop a process that allows us to collect this information. So we sent out surveys to working group members last year to identify projects, what phases they're in, if they're something they just want to do down the line in the future, years from now, or if this is something that is actually being talked about in their organizations. What are their barriers? What are the next steps? And of course, what are the climate benefits? These are some of the projects that we've been looking at and working on. Number 7, the solar rooftops and community solar. We've been working with the city on that. They have identified 7 buildings out of all the buildings that they own that actually give us everything we need to have solar rooftops. And community solar is important because living in the city, not everyone owns a home and are able to get solar benefits on their own home. So this is important to our renters and people who are able, they'll be able to tap into that community solar. What's interesting about these projects, a lot of these things have not been done here in New Orleans. So we're all, including our colleagues in the other organizations, we're learning this as we're going down, working on these projects. So we've identified those buildings and we've been working with the city as well as some of our partners on getting those first solar rooftops done. And then one of the ones that I'm going to highlight today is the work that we've been doing with the RTA on their downtown regional transit center. And we can go to the next slide. So this is a grant that they applied for in November. And so we did a LOI with them that we would fund resilient elements of their transit facility and then potentially other transit facilities as well. This funding is intended to supplement other traditional sources. They have not, that grant is still out there, but they did receive the RAISE grant. And so this is going to allow us to do several other projects with them. And we are working currently on a CEA for us to move forward with those as well. What they're looking at is looking at energy efficiency, on-site renewable energy generation, building hardening to mitigate impacts from storms and hurricanes. So these are all the type of things that we've been talking to their team with to make sure that it's feasible and they're able to do them. And then what does that look like on our side to make sure that we're able to assist them with those elements that they are building into their transit centers. Next slide, please. Resilient innovation. So we can go ahead to the next one. So one of the things that we have been talking about here at Finance New Orleans with the team is how do we make an impact with startups, developers, institutions, and what are their needs? I've been talking to different startup founders, also different developers in the community, working with them. And one of the things that we know is that they need seed capital for the beginning to get their projects off the ground. So we are looking to have a Resilient New Orleans Innovation Fund, and this will help with pre-development capital for those projects that fit into the sectors that are outlined in that the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. So the key themes that this would revolve around are climate action, green economic development, sustainability, social equity, and economic justice. And it also enabled these companies to develop innovative projects that meet the needs of the community. Just last week, we were at New Orleans Innovation Week, and one of the main themes, well, one of the whole days on Wednesday was about climate tech. So these are all things that we know are happening. We know they're happening throughout the country, and we want to be on the forefront of helping to develop these innovative projects that are going to help change the way the sustainability of our community. Next slide, please. So the structure, this is something that we will present to the board in the next couple meetings, but we're looking at a capitalization of about $2.2 million. This will provide pre-development capital, potential seed funding in the future, possibly equity guarantees and partnering with developers on real estate equity projects. We're also looking at the projects that we're looking at will also potentially turn into bond deals. So we're very excited about presenting this to the board in the upcoming months, the complete structure, and put it in before you. The goals for this particular fund is that we want to keep pace with green innovation and create new products here in the city. We know we've been talking to C40, we've been talking to counterparts in other cities, other countries, and we know that this green innovation is out there and what they're doing with it. And so we know that there's a need for this pre-development capital to help these particular startups get off the ground. So we are here to try to meet that need. Also job creation, then stimulate the economy by investing in startups and help to meet city climate goals. And then we're here to train new business leaders and create larger skills and talent pool. I know when we're talking to these founders who have all of these great ideas, it is quite a commitment going through the different stages of how to get the project off the ground, what is needed before we even get to the funding part. So it is a need to create these new business leaders and make sure that they're successful here in the city of New Orleans. So as I brought up, we will be presenting a full presentation in front of the board in the upcoming months. But these are the things that we're currently working on the innovation side and with the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan and the working group.
Thank you, Mashika. Are there any questions from the board about the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan or the Innovation Fund that we're preparing to launch? Okay, thank you. Naj, Elizabeth, please go back to my presentation because I'll touch on the timing of getting this into market. You see here some highlights from our roadmap. Mashika mentioned New Orleans Entrepreneur Week. We were a part of that last week. We had an opportunity to present or be interviewed on a panel last Thursday, and that it was pretty decently attended, and there was also attendance online. It was live streamed, so we were able to get our message out about what we'd like to contribute to the innovation of New Orleans or accelerating New Orleans becoming more resilient, and how do we meet in the middle with innovative entrepreneurs and developers that are out there creating the ideas and the projects that will physically transform New Orleans. So that was a great coming out party for Finance New Orleans, considering we've been haven't really been participating in events since the pandemic, and this was one of our first to be a part of, and we're going to be doing many more coming up. Next big thing happening for us is our Investor Summit on April 21st. It's going to be partly online and partly in person. We will have impact investors and other types of investors from around the country tune in and hear about our plans to make New Orleans more resilient, and also talk about the impact bond issue that we've been studying for a few years at this point. We're ready to turn the corner and ask the market to help us execute that bond issue so that we can get the capital we need to move our city forward. Immediately after our investor conference, we have the NELFA conference, which we spoke about a little earlier in New York City. We're going to get together with housing finance agencies from across the country and also other market participants That's something we do every year. It's evolving, but we also have an opportunity to push our message when we go to New York as a team. Excuse me, the Resilient Innovation Fund, we'd like to start the launch of it at next month's board meeting. Mashika mentioned that there's some technical information we have to present you with in order for us to officially move forward. We're going to start sharing that information in April and look to move forward so that we can make our first investment in the third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. Also, we're launching our Green Mortgage campaign in early May. We're going to be touching homeowners, realtors, lenders, all of the players involved in helping the mortgage market happen here in New Orleans, the low to moderate income mortgage market. We're going to get that process going again. We have the programs up and running, the infrastructure is in place. Now it's time for us to spread the word so that we can help more people get their hands on a green mortgage. Also, we're doing an RFQ, a potential RFQ for bond underwriters for our impact bond issue. We may have to go to market, and that would require a bond underwriter or some sort of placement agent. It's also possible that we could get a direct buyer. Those things are still being evaluated. We still have some steps to take before we officially launch the bond issue, but we are starting to put those pieces in place. Also, in early May, we were invited to the Milken Institute Global Conference. There will be a variety of investors and other types of parties that can help us move forward our plan, make an investment in Finance New Orleans. I have an opportunity to speak to a room full of investors along with some other agencies across the country. So it should be a good opportunity for us to get exposure there. Also, you approved the $35 million bond issue for Christopher Park. We've had some challenges getting to the market on that bond issue. We're working behind the scenes to correct those issues, or overcome, I should say, overcome those challenges, and we'll keep updating you as we have more progress. We also have a few other conferences, the NFMA, which is the National Federation of Municipal Analysts Conference. That's coming up in May, another opportunity for us to promote the work that we're doing and try to get the investment necessary to achieve our impacts. The Sustainable Developer Credit Enhancement Program, we have some deals in our pipeline, projects from developers, DBE developers that need access to the bond market, but they need our help to get into the bond market. So we've been working on using our sustainable developer capital to help those developers get in the market, which would create more bond issues. And we have some lined up that we still like to start closing mid this year. And then also toward the end of the year, we'd like to close on that impact bond issue going into the third quarter or going into the fourth quarter of this year. And that will allow us to start next year with a fresh pool of capital to stimulate the projects that Mashika laid out and all of the housing projects that were talked about in our programs committee. So we have the pipeline. Again, I'm a broken record, but it's so critical that we have our balance sheet in a position that can support these types of deals, and that we can do it over and over again to create the type of income streams we need to be successful and to be sustainable so that we can invest in New Orleans over the long run. So all of our attention is going to be focused on these activities over the next few months. The team is working hard to achieve the goals that we've set in our new strategic plan. We're working hard to get this off the ground. We do have some momentum, and we are very close to achieving some of these goals. But we're going to have to go through a very difficult push over these next few months to achieve some of these goals. But I'm confident that we can get them, and we'll continue to cross these off as they come about. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Well, that concludes my report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No questions, but definitely comments, and want to commend you and team. That Mashika, that presentation was great. It's right where we need as a community, as a city, to move forward. It aligns with the vision and the mission that we've been talking about with the sustainable development pipeline, the green infrastructure, the green way forward for this city. So I'm excited that we continue to move in the direction that we all want to move into. I realize there's a lot of opportunities out there, but there's also some capital opportunities that we need to try to see if we can take advantage of to really reach goals and the visions that you set forth, Damon. So I'm excited with all the momentum that's happening.
Thank you.
Now, are there any public comments out there?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. There's no other business. If there's no other comments, no other questions or concern, we can move for adjournment.
Chairman Chase, I just want to, before we move for adjournment, I don't want to be a broken record, but I want to echo your sentiments and just thank the staff and really congratulate them for the work and the jobs that they're doing to move the agenda forward. Just a lot of good work's happening, and thank you all for being so thorough in your presentations, great presentations.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I will move for adjournment.
Any seconds? No seconds? Can I second?
A second.
All right. It's been moved and properly second. We will see you all next month after we get the doodle poll out there. So look forward to that doodle poll, and y'all enjoy this beautiful weather we're having today. See y'all later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great night.